And welcome back to The Short Game, the show about short video games, games that respect your time. I am Reagan Kelly, and I am joined this week by two fantastic co-hosts plus a special guest.
Laura Nash, not the special guest.
Nate Heininger.
And joining us this week, returning special guest and friend of the show and host of the excellent Vent Huffer podcast, a reverie of the Valve Steam Deck, Jason McIntosh. Welcome back, Jason.
And you nailed the updated tagline that I made halfway through season 2. So thank you very much for that attention, Reagan.
I like that word. I liked that touch very much. For our listeners, if you haven't listened to Vent Huffer, which I why not? It's on all the podcast platforms, or at least the ones
Bringing
that I care
endorsement.
about.
Why not? No, it's good.
Excuse me.
Let me try.
It's a great show,
Reagan. It's a good show that our
it's a good show.
would enjoy listening
Correct.
to.
My understated recommendation aside, you should go check it out.
Loves a niche podcast.
It's a very special, very short podcast, a podcast that respects your time, if you will.
Very good.
And each episode takes the Steam Deck as a sort of jumping off point to, I would say, almost like a personal essay style. Some of them more technical, some of them more explicitly about the feelings that one gets to via the Steam Deck or other things. So I would highly recommend folks check it out. And I'm really glad to have you back.
I'm super happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
And I'm happy that we're doing this episode because it's once again an opportunity for me to bully people into doing whatever is my weird tech hyperfixation of the week.
This is a Reagan episode if we've ever done one before. This is an hour plus of Reagan's retro corner, all crammed. Here we go. For better or worse, I think we'll figure that out together.
Yeah, let me explain. So, a couple of weeks ago my kids really like Sonic the Hedgehog, but mostly in theory. They've been bugging me to play Sonic games, and I tried them with Sonic Mania, a classic, and I tried them also with the Sonic Origins collection, which is a pretty good way of playing some of the old. It has some issues. There's some fan gripes about it, but overall, if you want a fairly polished way to play as Amy, an important factor for my daughter in the first 4 or whatever Sonic games, the main 3 plus CD, then it accomplishes that goal. And I was playing those, and it made me think, like, these really, like, this, playing as Amy in Sonic 2, this really feels like a Sonic fan game. And then made me think, I haven't ever really played a Sonic fan game. And then it also made me think, the Steam Deck would probably be pretty good for playing fan games, right? Because so many of those fan games are like PC exclusives, or they're something that's been banned from the internet. Illegal games that Nintendo doesn't want you to play, but you can download an exe illicitly and play it on your Windows PC or whatever. It hasn't been a world I've really deeply explored, but sort of interested. And so I thought, let's try some fan games on the Steam Deck. And when I say fan games, I had to specifically restrict my co-hosts a little bit.
Well, maybe, Reagan, maybe some of us don't fully still understand the definition that you've created for us here. So maybe now we can do this together. So let's go into it.
I was being a little pedantic because I had a specific kind of game in mind for this episode. And so I apologize retroactively to my co-hosts and to Jason. What I really wanted us to cover here were the kinds of games that you absolutely can't play on other platforms. So not games that have been officially released in any form, not something that you can download on, your Nintendo Switch. Ideally, games that are that have that sort of feeling of illicit IP theft to them, things that are taking an existing property and appropriating it and releasing a fan work based on it without the permission of the rights holders. And in fact, even if it's involved legal threats, even better, right? Mm-hmm. That's the kind of energy that I was looking for here.
But not a
and then yes, and then also, this is my pedantic element, not a ROM hack. I think ROM hacks are a great, exciting world of video games, and there are whole games that are made as ROM hacks. We, for example, did a great episode on Plumber for All Seasons, an incredible Super Mario World ROM hack that is its own game in its own right, but it is built by hacking the the Super Mario World ROM. Here, I wanted to focus on the Steam Deck specifically as the sort of potentially a place for these to live and thrive. The only place where on a console-like experience, a fan game can have equal billing and sit right alongside a official release. That's really interesting to me. And like ROM hacks are very cool, but you can play them on an emulator. Those emulators will run literally anywhere. I can play them on my phone, et cetera, et cetera. I cannot play like an exe of a fan game on my phone or on my little handheld whatever dingus, like the Mew Mini or whatever. These are something that are sort of specific to PCs, and because the Steam Deck is a PC to Steam Decks. So that's what we're trying to cover a bit today. What are the coolest fan games that you can play on your Steam Deck? And here we are. In order to play any of these, though, we kind of need to have an understanding of like, what can you do on a Steam Deck? If you buy a Steam Deck and you're used to this sort of console Nintendo Switch experience, you unbox it, it boots into Steam, you download your games off of Steam, and you get a very console-like experience. But the Steam Deck isn't only a console, and it has, I think the thing that makes all of this possible is that it has a incredible feature called desktop mode. The Steam Deck pitches itself as a handheld gaming PC. Valve is very explicit. This is PC gaming. This is a PC, and to that end, it is not restricted in any way. You can do all the PC stuff on it. And so rather than continue talking about all of that, Jason actually wrote a really interesting article for Linux Magazine. Is that right? Or is it Linux User?
Magazine.
Linux Magazine. For Linux Magazine, all about what is desktop mode. So, Jason, would you explain to our listeners who maybe don't have a Steam Deck or maybe haven't used this angle of the Steam Deck, like what does that actually mean in terms of what someone can do?
Absolutely. And I'll begin by saying it's been a couple of months since I last thought about this on the explanatory level. So any mistakes I make, please email them to the short game. So yes, desktop mode is interesting to me in particular because when I first got my Steam Deck, I was like, Reagan being Reagan immediately dove into like flipping the hood up and starting to tinker with it on that level. And I was terrified of it. I'm like, I don't want to brick my system. No, thank you. Not for me. I don't know what my actual turning point was where it might have been like, I wonder if I can write a magazine article now that I'm suddenly without a full-time job. I'm willing to risk the health of my Steam Deck. I can factory reset it if I need to. And it turns out that while there is not a giant glowing button in the middle of the default gaming mode, as they call it, to switch to desktop mode, Valve doesn't hide it either. If you bring up the power menu, which is to say the menu that comes up when you hit the physical power button on the Steam Deck, or if you just bring up the side menu when you hit power because you want to put the system to sleep if you're holding a controller, there is an option right there. It's not the first option, but it's there that says switch to desktop mode, or perhaps it's exit to desktop mode. I don't have it right in front of me. But yes, you can hit that, and it doesn't say, are you sure this is dangerous and scary? It's just like, okay, let's go. And the screen blanks out. You get a little animation, and you come back, and you are looking at a complete, usable KDE Plasma Linux desktop, which is the desktop that comes with SteamOS, which is fork of Arch Linux that your Steam Deck runs on. And there you go. You have it. You're continuing to use your Steam Deck, but your UI is now a Linux desktop as opposed to gaming mode, aka big picture mode. I believe these are effectively one and the same. Mm-hmm. So that's all there is to it. And then you're literally just using a PC. Like Reagan said, your Steam Deck is a PC already, but in its default mode, it's wearing its gaming console clothing. And you're saying like, actually, be a PC for me. And it says, okay, boss, I'm a PC now.
I mean,
yeah, and I have a mouse and keyboard and a monitor to mine, and with it docked, it's over in the corner, and for all intents and purposes, you're sitting there with a PC.
Highly recommended.
yeah.
I hate using the keyboard on this without a Bluetooth keyboard attached.
It's all-
Can I tell you about my
Tell.
favorite Steam Deck accessories? I have
of course,
them mostly
Reagan's
within.
got a wheelbarrow here. He's
go.
pulled over. Hold on. Let's
This
see.
right here.
There it is.
This right here is
an
a
atomic bomb.
Bluetooth keyboard made by Lenovo, I guess, whoever currently makes the ThinkPad line. This is a keyboard that also has the little track point, the like red
Yeah.
nipple mouse. It has that, and
Please
you
never
sit this
say
in front
those
of your
words
Steam
again.
Deck, and it's like I'm a laptop now. It feels like a laptop. And then this is a recent acquisition this week. This is a USB-C powered portable monitor, 15 inches.
Oh.
This is a thing that I just got. I got this for some remote work I'm about to have to do, but I also realized, oh God, this is an awesome Steam Deck accessory because you plug it into your Steam Deck over USB-C, and the Steam Deck will power this, or you can pass through power from the wall through this. And you get like, I hooked this and my laptop or like my keyboard up to the thing, and I was like, I might as well be using like a 15-inch gaming laptop all of a sudden.
I have
it's phenomenal.
I have seen
me.
Reagan holding up his newborn child. What I just saw was a more proud man holding up that little monitor. The way,
Absolutely.
the smile and the glee in his eyes is
God,
that
I
may
hate
be
you,
the,
mate.
Look
that
at
might
this
be
thing of beauty.
the happiest I've ever seen you, Reagan.
The difference between you
Shut
and
up.
me is my stuff is like I have the tiniest keyboard possible because it's from when I was consulting and trying to have the lightest weight little thing. So all of my Bluetooth accessories are designed to be like very small and portable and fit in my New York apartment. And you are hauling this giant, beautiful keyboard in this.
It looks
portable
nice.
one.
That thing's not that big. It's actually like it's smaller than my desktop keyboard. It's like it's really tiny. But what's nice about it is it has the mouse built in, so I don't have to go have a separate mouse.
Anyway, it's just really
But that's the thing
annoying.
with the desktop mode, like you get, even if you don't have all that crap, like if you don't have a dock to dock the thing in or whatever, the Steam Deck has a lot of little affordances to let you use the desktop mode even without that stuff. You can use the trackpads as a mouse, and they work reasonably well. If you've ever used something like a trackball mouse from the 90s, those things, it's a lot like the feeling of using a trackball. And you can pull up an on-screen keyboard at any time. Little life hack that I just learned while working on this episode. When you're in gaming mode, you can pull up the on-screen keyboard at any time by pushing the Steam button and then pressing X on your controller. I've always known that. But in desktop mode, you don't even need to hit the Steam button. You just hit the X button on the controller and it pulls up the keyboard.
I did not know that. And for what it's worth, like
neither.
I did the game that I played for the one that I was successfully able to install and play, I did entirely on my Steam Deck in mobile. All with like the little trackpads and the touch. The Steam Deck has a touch screen too, so all else fails, you just tap right on the thing you're trying to tap on. So it was clunky, not my ideal way to do it, but I didn't feel like getting all my rig set up for that moment, and I did the whole thing without any of this. So if you're out there listening, if you're getting deep into it, I highly recommend you get at least a mouse. But like you can do it. At least some of the simpler ones without any of this extra equipment.
Yeah, I'd say actually there's kind of like a two-phase thing to getting games like this set up on the Steam Deck. Part of it is like I need to get the game installed and running on my Steam Deck, which you generally do in desktop mode. And then you can add the game to gaming mode, and then we can switch back to gaming mode, and suddenly you have like brought a little bit of the PC desktop experience with you into the console-like experience. And I did a bit of a mix. Like Nate did, some of these games, I actually had a better experience running them in desktop mode. So certain games may just sort of work better in that mode. For example, one of the games we'll talk about later, I got it working perfectly fine in desktop mode, but then when I tried to bring it into the gaming mode, I had issues with the controls. So sometimes you may find some situations like that. But for the most part, if you can get it working on a desktop Linux PC, you can also bring it into the gaming experience on the Steam Deck, and you get all of the benefits of the sort of pick up and play game browsing interface, all the stuff that you would have from like anything you bought on Steam.
And it's worth saying it's not that you need to find the Linux version of the game either. because of the Proton compatibility layer, which is the raison d'etre for the Steam Deck in a lot of ways. So Steam OS ships with a compatibility layer called Proton, which essentially implements the entire Windows API, but it runs in Linux. And what that means, if I can oversimplify it, is you can just run exe files, and there they are, and they often work. So, for example, one of the games I played for this episode was a fan remake of a Sega Genesis game that was made in 2011. I think it was last edited in 2020. I think it is officially a Windows program. The folks who made it and released it did not try to release it for any other platform. You feed it to Proton, and it says, okay, and it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and most stuff just works like that. And that's one of the magical things about the Steam Deck as a platform. Like, most developers on Steam are not releasing Linux versions of their games, but you don't have to know or care much about that. Now, when we get into the area of talking about downloading a fan game from the internet and getting it running on your Steam Deck, unfortunately, you have to care a bit more than you would have with your typical Steam Deck game. And so we are going to be talking a little bit as we go through the games that we played about what the experience was like getting them up and running. It's not a uniform thing. Some games run super, super well and require zero tweaking. Others require a little creativity or understanding of the under the hood processes involved. So we're going to talk about that stuff as we go. I think before we dive into specific games, last thing I thought we should talk about a little bit is like, where do you find games like this? And like, what kinds of games are out there? I think broadly speaking, the games that we were looking at for this episode kind of fall into a couple of main categories. One would be things that are essentially like fan remakes of classics. And then the other would be like games that are spins on existing IP, remix versions of classic games. So in the sort of remake side of things, there's lots of games that take existing games and either port the existing source code or decompile the game and try to recreate the source code, or rewrite a game entirely from scratch. So basically something that's trying to do like a PC version of something that was not previously available on PC and kind of bring additional features to it, kind of like you'd get from a remaster that would be released by an official company, but made by fans. So something that sticks close to the original experience, but gives you new options on what you can play the game on and different ways to configure it and customize it and tweak it and maybe extend it in interesting ways. And then there's the total fan games that are like, well, I don't like how the Sonic games are going today. Let me make my own, and it's going to be totally different. And those are also super, super cool. For either of those cases, I think the thing to start with is like, if you have a particular property that you have like undue amounts of affection for, just Google that plus the words fan game and see what's out there, because it's a whole wild world. One thing you'll need to be prepared for is that a lot of the time, especially with Nintendo properties, but almost any of these, you need to be prepared for the fact that like you're going to find a handful of articles that say this incredible fan game was just released, and then a day later this incredible fan game was removed from the internet. And don't be deterred. That does not mean that you cannot play it. In almost every case, those games get released, they get cat and moused, copyrighted out of existence, but they continue to exist in a sort of fan underground, what's the word? Like they continue to exist on a black market almost. You can usually find them on archive.org. That's the like place where things exist. Thank you to archive.org. By the way,
literally the safest place to get such things.
Yeah, archive.org is a very important resource on the internet. If you are not, you should consider donating money to them. I give archive.org $25 a month. And I am very happy for it. I spend more on it than I do on Netflix.
Files you download will be safe, but you're looking and deciding which one to download. All of that will be completely safe and ad-free. So like take your own risk at what you're downloading at archive.org. I will not vouch for anyone's random stuff they put up there, but you're going to have a very safe time finding the files, which is not always true.
And make sure you put in our promo code SHORTGAME and with every download at archive.org.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so those free downloads.
So, like, for example, if you're a big Metroid fan, super famous fan game that we're not really talking about on this episode because none of us actually played it for this episode, although I have played it, it's really good. AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake. Incredible fan game, nuked from orbit by the Nintendo lawyers because it came out a little bit before Nintendo released their own remake of Metroid 2, which came out on the 3DS. So they had a economic interest in destroying this game, despite the fact that it is maybe one of the best 2D Metroid games ever made and not made by Nintendo. But if you Google AM2R download link, unfortunately, you're going to find a lot of sketchy sites, but you also will find archive.org and you'll find a copy there that you can download and play. I also recommend, if you're getting to one of these games and you're like, how do I play this? Or, how do I get this? YouTube is the Library of Alexandria of our times. There are, for every game that we're going to be discussing, there's like 6 videos where if you search YouTube for like play XYZ game on Steam Deck, someone will show you the installation process, will show you what the game looks like running on a Steam Deck. Use that stuff. There are some like standard approaches you can use for these, but every game has its own little quirks. If you try a game and it doesn't work the first time, definitely look up those kinds of resources. I had to lean on several of those. Anybody else have anything to say about like the process or anything like that before we dig into specific games?
I think the one thing I'd like to add is just the fall down easiest way to find games is via desktop mode. If you just want to practice getting familiar with desktop mode and side loading software onto your Steam Deck, for lack of a better, is to use the Discover app, which is already on your, what's it called? Not a dock. That's a Mac term. But the thingy at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
It's something.
It has its own name for it. KDE is like a whole desktop environment. It's got, if you ever get into like customizing that thing, man, KDE is like unreal levels of customizability there, which just speaks to like indecision and assembly by committee. But it is very customizable.
You're absolutely right, though.
Click on the little shopping bag icon, and you can find games, and you can find other stuff too, and play with it, and be like, wow, I'm doing this on my Steam Deck. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, most people I know who on the internet who I was kind of seeing where people started with desktop mode, most people just said, I was going on a trip and didn't want to bring multiple devices, so I downloaded VLC and some movies and wanted to watch them on my Steam Deck. And so that's a real good little baby version of trying to figure out what the experience is of downloading an app in desktop mode. And that's something to try if you aren't ready for a full game. Try something simple.
Or I think retro like emulators are in all there. I think when we did our Symphony of the Night episode, I used Discover to buy, I think it was Retro Deck, which was like a whole thing built to do retro games on Steam Deck. It was about as simple as it could be for a thing like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Laura, just to your point about like taking movies on your Steam Deck, this is like one of the things that I found like surprisingly useful about the thing is like if I'm taking my Steam Deck anywhere, it's a PC, I can copy files onto it. Like I used to bring like an iPad with movies synced from Plex, but like it was constantly a pain in the ass. Like, they have to convert and download on it just took forever. And like the Steam Deck, it's just like, open up a file browser window, copy it down from the NAS, or plug a USB stick into it or whatever. It's like dead easy, like any other computer. And then the Steam Deck is really good at outputting to a TV. If you're bringing a dock along or one of the, any other kind of adapter, it'll work with whatever kind of USB-based peripherals you might have. It's just dead easy. This has now become like my way to bring, like, if I'm going on like a trip, especially if I'm going on a trip with the kids and I need to bring like an entire library of Bluey or whatever, I just like have that. I just stick it on my Steam Deck. It's the easiest thing ever.
When you're holding the Steam Deck and watching movies, do you twirl the joysticks around and pretend that you're controlling the characters of the movies?
Of course.
Okay.
Cool.
Just
press
sure,
A to pay respects. Well, listeners, we're now going to get into talking about some actual games. This is by no means going to be an exhaustive list of anything. The world of fan games is enormous. We all just sort of followed our own hearts and played some random stuff, right? And we did a little bit of research. We played a little bit of some games. You know, like any of our sort of roundup type episodes, this is not meant to be an authoritative list of everything. So if you are, you know, by the end of this episode, just gripping the edges of your seat saying, why didn't they talk about my favorite fan game? We really want to hear about your favorite fan game, buddy. Tell us, man. That's the stuff that we want to know. Drop it in our Discord, send it to us in the emails, all the things. Like this is a topic that I think we could go on about forever. Somebody you want to go in front of me? Because I've been talking too much already. Nate, do you want to tell me about what you played?
All right, sure. I'll jump in. Well, we're going crazy here. So this is an entirely new world for me. I think an unpopular opinion, at least in this forum, though I don't think I'm alone in this. I've never been particularly drawn to fan created content at all, whether that's fanfic or fan games. You know, my thought has always been there's so much stuff out there that I want to play, that I want to engage in. I don't need to go like into the depths of the internet to dig up something and play it or read it or whatever. Like, I don't need to find a Star Wars fanfic. I've never watched Battlestar Galactica. You know, I've got like there's an immense amount of content out there available to me, and I don't need this. No disrespect to the creators, of course. There's some fantastic work out there, but I've never really cared about it. So this exercise for this episode, was really interesting to me. It forced me to dip my toes into an environment that I had never been in. So after struggling and failing for 2+ hours to try and install Super Mario and the Rainbow Stars, by all accounts, a phenomenal fan game that just I could not get running on my Steam Deck, a listener. We sort of teased this episode on a previous episode, sent us a list. I'm sorry, I don't have their name in front of me. I don't know, Reagan, if you might be able to find it while I wander around with my words, but it's on the list. Something that I'd actually heard about but had completely forgotten about, which is Strawberry Jam, which is a fan game of Celeste. Celeste is in my top 5 favorite games of all time. I did not 100% it. I'm stuck somewhere in the seasides. That game gets just like unruly difficult, illegally difficult, I would almost argue. So I never made it all the way, but it is a game that I love. I nearly 100%ed. And I don't know, I'd always been content though, just like, it's done. I'm done. I'll just wait for the next Maddie Makes Games game. I don't need to go out and find something else, but for this episode, for this exercise, this seemed like the perfect thing for me. I did, like Reagan suggested before, I found a video. It was exactly what Reagan said. It said, how to play Strawberry Jam on your Steam Deck. Love it. There is a mod kit that you can find through Discover. Love it. I think as far as these things go, this could not have been simpler. Of course, I still ran into problems. I don't know if it's just me or what. Like, this whole exercise has reminded me of way back in the day when I used to like pirate video games, circa like 2000. I think I pirated the original Max Payne. This is what we're talking about, right? And just like the nonsense you had to go through to play these games and like. Just, it's how it feels like with this. But anyway, the issue I had was very minor. For whatever reason, I'd run the installer and my Steam Deck screen would just completely freeze. I'd lose access to everything and I had to restart it. 3 or 4 restarts through, I got it running. It followed the video exactly. If I hadn't had the freezes and the issues with that, this would have taken 3 minutes to install, so it's all put out on a plate for you. It could not be easier. And the game itself is quite incredible. And I am very glad that I've gone through this. This is really the first fan game I've played. I've already said that. And I'm very excited to have done this. So Strawberry Jam, it's called Strawberry Jam Collab because it is, I think hundreds of people have been working for years on this, creating just an entire new Celeste game, fully designed levels, brand new music. It's It's everything you want from Celeste and more. And because of the way they did it, you know, they're really thoughtful to the player. It's broken into chunks like beginner, intermediate, expert. There's sort of these, they call them lobbies, but it's almost like a home world where you pick the beginner lobby, and it's a gigantic Celeste level, and you're exploring it, trying to find levels. And each little level you find is a handcrafted Celeste map, you know, created by someone, by an individual or a team or whatever it may be. So it's really quite clever because you're just, you know, exploring this world, and you're finding these little Celeste experiences. You get all the credits for who designed that individual experience. You get unique music for it. I don't think anyone will ever top the GOAT Lena Raine as far as soundtrack goes, but there's some really good music in this too. And because of these, they're all these little bite-sized Celeste experiences. They allow the creators to really take a single idea or one or two ideas and run with them as far as they can. So, you know, Celeste it's one of those games that the mechanics feel simple when you're learning it, but the depth is quite deep. What a dumb way to put that, but that's where I'm at right now. So, you know, it'll be a map that's like, okay, this is all about levers and the dream boxes, and it's going to test that skill to its extreme, and then you beat that and you're done and you move on to the next one. One of the more clever ones I saw that I've played a lot of it, and there's so much in this game that I'm not even close to really even what I feel like scratching the surface of it. Someone designed a map that is intended for the player to play blindfolded and have someone in the room explain to them what they're supposed to do. Okay. That is its intended purpose.
Excellent.
But if you don't have someone next to you who can aid you in that, you can slam into Battle-In and it turns off the light. So the map goes completely black, and Battle-In will tell you in text what you're supposed to do. So it'll be like, move right, climb up, dash right, hold right, grip wall, drop down, dash left, you know, so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And it gets more and more complicated, and then you make it to the landing spot, and then the lights turn on and you can see what you just navigated off of just text, you know. And it's just a really clever idea. It doesn't outstay its welcome. You know, I think it's only maybe 6 or 7 screens total, if that. Because it's kind of hard and it's a little clunky, but like it's short enough. It's kind of the thesis of our podcast, right? It's like, it's a unique idea and it's short enough that you're like, well, that was fun, and here I am talking about it on the podcast. But if it was like, you know, an entire chapter or something, it would just be impossible. But it's that sort of thing that, you know, I think there's 300 something, there's 111 maps, 1,500 playable rooms, 9 hours of original music. I'm just reading the copy at this point, but like, it's a full-on Celeste game, and I'm really glad that I played it. And I if you like Celeste, I'd highly recommend it. It had been years since I'd really dug back into Celeste, and I was immediately like, I am so happy and so mad immediately because, you know, death over and over and over. But it's good. It's good. So check it out. It's called Strawberry Jam.
That's awesome. There's a whole, you know, a lot of what I was looking at when I was deciding on stuff to cover for this episode was like, what are the, you know, unofficial fan games for Nintendo and, you know, the and Sega properties, like the big names, the stuff that's been DMCA'd into oblivion that you have to dig up off of archive.org. But there are a lot of really interesting fan games of the most popular indie games as well. Yeah. And I think that's a really cool area. The one that's like very much, I'm very interested in playing right now that I did not play for this episode, is Undertale Yellow, which is a full Undertale game, a prequel to Undertale featuring the Yellow Soul, which is a featured element of Undertale. This is a non-canon story. It is known about, not sued into oblivion by Toby Fox, but also very much not official to the main canon. But a game that is within the Undertale lore and story, looks incredible. And they had some, I mean, so far all I've seen is like videos of the thing, but like they had some incredible animators do like fully animated cutscenes for the trailer. Everything I've seen about it looks like it's just like doing Undertale more, you know? Yeah. And as you can tell from us talking about Deltarune, I'm okay with doing Undertale more. I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah,
so,
I almost
the fact that yeah,
that was recommended by the same listener who recommended Strawberry Jam, and I almost did that one instead, especially because I'm actively playing Deltarune Chapter 4 right now, and I'm just, you know, we were pretty happy about Chapter 3, and I'm just kind of back in the headspace of enjoying the Undertale world, so I almost picked that, but I couldn't pass up some time back in Celeste. No. And it also, there's another one that I've been aware of for a very long time, but for all the reasons I said before, I've never picked it up. There's you can ring your little bell. There's an FTL mod called Multiverse that is just incredibly popular in the community. And it's like, you know, an expansion of the entire game and new ships, new everything. I think it's bigger than the original game at this point. And, you know, people love it. So I've never checked it out, but maybe this has inspired me and I'll go check it out.
Cool. Well, the thing that really spun me into this topic was thinking about Sonic the Hedgehog. And so
we're always just thinking about Sonic the Hedgehog around here, aren't we
all? You know, I'm honestly like, I'm a Sonic fan. I grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog. I was a Genesis kid. I played a lot of Sonic. But I also, you know, like anybody else in, you know, I mean, Sonic got real bad there for a while, right? Like there was a lot of really mediocre Sonic games. Like most Sonic games are bad if you go by numbers at this point. Yeah. You know, Mania specifically like made me hopeful about Sonic again. And Mania, Christian Whitehead, came out of the Sonic fan game community. Nintendo's very litigious about their properties, but Sega has historically not been super litigious. They do sue you if you make a fan game based on their work, as will some of the games that we'll talk about tonight have had legal attention from Sega, and you have to dig them up from archive.org, etc. But they have a better reputation with this stuff.
They might actually hire you, like someone who did a mobile ripoff.
That is Christian Whitehead,
to do a mobile port. So like, if you do a good enough job, they might sue you first and then be like, "But if you would like to give us your source code."
That is exactly what happened. Christian Whitehead, who made Sonic Mania, made his own source like reconstruction port of the original Sonic games and ported them to mobile, and they were so good that Daddy Sonic hired him. And
Jim Carrey,
and he became, you know, official and got to make Sonic Mania. I was very disappointed that they're not making a Sonic Mania 2. And I know there was a lot of fan grumbling about the Origins collection, but I think it's actually pretty much fine now. Like, I don't know, it's fine enough for me. I enjoy it.
Oh, sorry for tangenting.
But
I just was very excited.
Yeah, Sega, every good decision they make, they followed up with like 4 bad decisions. Sonic Mania is the best Sonic game since the 90s, and you know, they should just keep making those.
Yeah, but I've been specifically jonesing for more Sonic Mania or something like it. And so I decided I was going to play some Sonic fan games. The world of Sonic fan games is vast. I picked 3 and I had very different experiences with each. So I'm going to talk through them. The first one that I played is one of the most famous Sonic fan games and also one of the like most widely beloved. It's a very interesting game called Sonic Robo Blast 2. This is one of those ones that's on the Discover Store, by the way. If you want an easy mode thing to download on your Steam Deck and install, you can download Sonic Robo Blast 2. Interesting thing about Sonic Robo Blast 2 is that it is made in the Doom engine. So this is a 3D Sonic game, but done with the 90s style, like sprites, like flat sprites in a 3D space and very chunky 3D polygonal levels. And it manages to bring Sonic speed to, I mean, Doom is already fast, right? But it manages to bring third-person Sonic gameplay into the Doom engine. It's a very interesting game. I think it plays best with a mouse and keyboard, which is weird. But the problem that I had, and the reason that I didn't play very much of this one, despite it being the one I was most excited to play, and it being one of the most famous Sonic fan games that you can download on PC, and one of the easiest to get on your Steam Deck, is that for whatever reason, it has native gamepad support. I absolutely could not get the camera controls working with a gamepad. Works great with a mouse. And
seems important.
Yeah. So if you feel like playing a Sonic game with a mouse and keyboard, it will absolutely play in desktop mode. And if you have a mouse and keyboard, it runs fantastically on the Steam Deck. And it's a really weird and interesting game. It's like no other Sonic game you've ever played. The fact that it is like made in the Doom engine melts into the background, and it just becomes the lost PC Sonic game from 1997 or something. It's a really interesting game. The levels that I played were interesting and well designed for this. Like, again, it's hard to compare it against anything because it is so different from any other game I've ever played. It's been out for many, 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 many years, and because of that, it has had many updates and versions. There are a zillion features, there are a zillion playable characters, there are a zillion levels. But you can just open it up, boot into like the story mode, and play it, and it is a straight up game. I don't know how long to beat on that one is. I bet it would take you 10 years because, again, there's been like a decade plus of like updates and expansions, etc. But Sonic Robo Blast 2, really, really interesting game. Unfortunately, not a great experience on Steam Deck, at least as far as I could tell. So maybe other folks would have a better experience with it, but I ended up dropping it after a couple of levels. The other two I played, I was a lot more successful with. One I was very, very excited about. That was Sonic and the Fallen Star. This is a 2D Sonic game. It bears a lot of similarity to Sonic Mania and to the old school classic Sonic games. But what's really most interesting about this is it has extremely unique and distinctive art style. It reads as a classic Sonic game. It's all pixel art, but every bit of it is drawn from scratch for this game. A lot of fan games reuse existing assets. They'll take sprites from older games and remix them and reuse them. This is a game where you can really tell that they have lovingly created everything completely from scratch. The visual style, it has a cool color scheme that is very unique and expressive, and sort of like lots of like muted neons is the best I can kind of describe it. Lots of purples and like lilacs, and it just like looks incredible. The pixel art also kind of has a little bit of a 32-bit vibe, so it like looks like an evolved version with a more stylish color palette of the old Sega Genesis Sonic games. There's a lot of really great animation, and it has an absolute banger soundtrack. The soundtrack is incredible. They have posted it to various different streaming services. You can go on like Spotify and listen to the Sonic and the Fallen Star soundtrack. It's great music. It's all on YouTube as well. So incredible stuff. Style off the charts. Absolute banger soundtrack. Everything about this thing worked for me except the level design. I did not jive with the level design. I will say this one was very easy also to install and get working on the Steam Deck. Highly recommend checking this one out. Maybe it'll work better for you. I played 4 or 5 levels of this. It does some really clever stuff. It has these like pixel art cutscenes where it tells a little bit more of a story than you typically get in a Sonic game. Nothing fancy, but it's there. And when you're doing these cutscenes, it's all done through sprite animations. So there's some like very custom, cute, bespoke animations with like character expressions and things. Like Tails just does the cutest little faces. It's great. And the bosses are okay, which is more than you can say for some Sonic games. Pretty decent. It was also pretty easy. Nothing too crazy hard. So I think it's a very approachable, good Sonic game. But the level design was it's hard for me to really explain why. It just didn't grab me that much. So I would get through the level and I'm like, that was cool. And I put it down again. So it wasn't ultra compelling. That said, again, absolute banger on every other level. So maybe you'll have slightly different feelings about this one. It's so good looking, man. Like if they had made Mania 2 and it looked exactly like this, it would have been great. The last one that I played, which I liked more than any of those other two, actually seemed much more modest on the face of it. This one was called Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit. This came out a couple of years ago, maybe 3. And Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit is a alternate universe imagining of... So Triple Trouble, if you've never heard of that one, Game Gear kids, stand up. I had a Game Gear. Triple Trouble was a Game Gear exclusive Sonic the Hedgehog game. And a pretty good one. Maybe the best Sonic the Hedgehog game on the Game Gear. And this game sort of imagines, what if that game were actually, like most of the games on the Game Gear were adapted ports of Genesis games. Maybe not most, but like a huge amount were like dumbed down, simplified versions of, like you could get Streets of Rage 2 for your Game Gear. I assure you, it was not Streets of Rage 2. It was an 8-bit mediocre attempt at the vibe of Streets of Rage 2. You know, interesting projects, interesting to play even now, but they were lesser games in many ways. This is like, what if Triple Trouble, the unique Sonic game for the Game Gear, were adapted from an absolutely killer Genesis game? What would that Genesis game have looked like? And Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit is the work of a single guy, I think. What was his name? I have it here. There's a Wikipedia article for this game, which is great. Created by American indie developer and music composer Noah Copeland. It's an unofficial remake of the 1994 Game Gear game Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble. It's really good. This game ruled. I loved it. It's made in Game Maker, but it looks exactly like a Genesis game. It's using original art, but it does it's using like the original game, like Sega Genesis art, but it does little flourishes every now and then where you're like, I don't recognize that from the Genesis. It's a phenomenal game. It's on Windows and there's a Mac version you can download, but like crucially, you can download the Windows version, and it absolutely just worked perfectly on the Steam Deck. Zero trouble. Controls worked perfectly. Everything was great. And I mean, it gives you some of that nice stuff like the widescreen mode. It has some features that are unique to, like things like the drop dash from Sonic Mania is in here. Like it's clear like this is in conversation with some of the other Sonic games. This is it's a modern game, but it just runs so goddamn well. And the level design, to be honest, I think I played Triple Trouble many, many years ago. I certainly never beat it. But I don't know to what degree this is just like recreating Triple Trouble levels versus like doing its own thing. I didn't do an A/B test comparison or anything, but it has great level design, great Sonic level design, and that's what really brought this one over the home plate for me. So like, I think of all the ones I just toyed around in, this is the one I would recommend the most. Triple Trouble 16-bit is like, this is like such a labor of love from like a single indie dev creating something that like he wished would exist in the world. All of these games are that, but like, man, I really like this one. So that's what I'd recommend. And if you want to check out this game, one of the nice things about the Sonic fan games is generally they have not been nuked from orbit by Sega. Triple Trouble 16-bit, you can just go out and download it. I think it's on... Well, if you Google it, it'll be like the first result. Like you can just download the exe. There's no like complex installation process of like ripping sprites from your own ROMs or anything like that. Just download it, add it as a non-Steam game in Steam, and it played perfectly fine. So super high recommendation there. And there's a ton of others. If you have a favorite Sonic fan game that you think is as good or better than Triple Trouble 16-bit, let me know, man, because I would love to play them.
We've talked about doing Sonic 2 as like a retro game for this show at some point. And I would be for it. We need to do a good classic Sonic game on this show.
Gotta go fast.
Yeah, that's why I downloaded the Origin collection recently and played through it. And you know what? Playing through Sonic 2 as Amy with her hammer, that's an upgrade, man. Loved it.
I've probably told this story on the show, but the number of times that I use a Sonic development story is like one of my top 10 anecdotes at work when I'm trying to talk about like technical limitations being a strength, because, and this is from the Art of Game Design by Jesse Schell, that Sonic only exists because they were trying to show off the fact that they could generate screens very quickly when you went right to left. And they were like, we need something that runs fast so that I can show off the fact that we can render screens faster than our competitors. And that's the only reason Sonic exists.
Nice.
Because they needed to
gotta
scroll
go
fast. And I'm like, you can be really creative with the technical strength or limitation and build a whole game around it, or build a whole piece of software around it. So,
and if it weren't for that, we wouldn't have Jim Carrey as Robotnik. And where would we be today if it weren't for that?
I don't want to live in that world.
No, me neither.
All of the little kids at my kids' daycare would have to come up with a different nickname for me. They all call me Dr. Eggman.
Oh.
Well, you do it to yourself,
Can't
Reagan.
see
I don't know
Reagan.
what
It's because of the
I
mustache.
don't know what you're expecting. Yeah, you look like Dr. Robotnik.
What can I say?
A more fit Robotnik, if
I
I'll
think
give
we
you
need
that.
to say Dr. Robotnik looks like Reagan.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There we go.
Add that to the list of characters from video games that look like Reagan. That in the Fox Vampire.
Oh yeah, the fox.
The Fox Vampire. Come on, man.
Passapart.
Yeah.
Passapartout.
I'll take it. Laura, I think you're next on our list here.
Yeah. So I tried to play Super Mario Brothers Rainbow Star, didn't work out. I did play, however, Link's Awakening DX HD. Those are a lot of letters, but it's just Link's Awakening. DX means it's the color version. And HD is the change here, because what they've done is the original Link's Awakening is a Game Boy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I've played it recently. I played it in an emulator, and then I played the Switch port. But you're locked to a tiny screen, and you interact with everything by moving around the screen. What this does is, what if instead the screen centered on Link and you broke down and expanded it so you see much more of the map at any given time? And this is both awesome and breaks things in interesting ways, because the game design didn't mean for you to see the screen all at once. Like, enemies can wander in, and at the same time, it makes it super alive. Like, you could see so much of the map, but like also you're lost in the forest. The Lost Woods just doesn't work because you can see the whole map. Like, there are things that work super well.
That's funny.
And there are things that are just like, oh no, they expanded the boundaries of the game, and maybe if they had kind of cut and cropped the port for this part, it would have been much better. That is, to me, it is an exercise in how one change can really affect a game's design. So it's beautiful. Man, this looks good. All the animations are great. But sometimes it's the best thing that map is bigger. And sometimes you're just like, ooh, unexpected consequences of your actions.
They were too fixated on if they could. They didn't stop to think if they should.
They really didn't, because at times they really shouldn't. It really doesn't work for some of the puzzles. But I kept playing because I wanted to see those edges. If you've never played this game before, do not play this port first. This is not going to be the right way to experience it. But if you're interested in game design, it's a really interesting way to see how, like, one change of a bigger map can completely alter the game, which I found fascinating. I played more of it than I expected to, having recently played the first port, because I loved seeing those differences. It really does change the way you play the game.
I think this is a really, really interesting one because it came out not that far off in time from Nintendo's own remake of this game. It came out a little later, but like Nintendo put out their version of like, well, let's revisit Link's Awakening, and it was, you know, a beautiful, complete rebuild. It had the basic same structure, but like, you know, 3D graphics with the beautiful, like, cutesy 3D Link art style, and it ran like absolute dog shit on the Nintendo Switch. Just like really a dog. Ran like 15 FPS sometimes or lower. Like really, like you felt it chugging. But it was doing really clever stuff with like tilt shift stuff, and it just looked cool. Really neat project. But also, like, that's not Link's Awakening. That is a new game with an entirely different, you know, approach to building that story or building that game. And this game is like, it's also kind of not the original game, but it's much, much more the original game than the Nintendo remake is. And I think it's an interesting idea of like, what would it look like? Sometimes you get this, but like, what does it look like to revisit and to port a classic game to modern systems, rethinking what that game truly is. Like, it's a really dramatic change to change from the like snap screen scrolling, like screen at a time scrolling of a classic Zelda to the open world map. That's a huge change. It obviously makes tons of differences to the game design and things like that.
You cannot wander out of a dungeon and back in to reset a puzzle. Imagine
Yeah,
if you had to
weird.
like walk really far to reset a puzzle, right? Like it just little things like that break, but it's also really cool to see what it changes.
Yeah. And like, I would also say like for me, when I played through most of this, I haven't finished it, but for when I played through most of it, it had been many, 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 many years since I played Link's Awakening. And I still think this held up really, really well. Like, the art is great. It's an incredible looking game. I wish we got more official re-releases that were more this and less the Link's Awakening remake from Nintendo.
I want this screen lock. I want a screen locked option of this, and then this will be the version I play when I want to revisit the game, because the animations, like they have made so many things high def. They've improved so many assets. We had these conversations at Game Club when we were trying to update stuff. We're always like, how much do we change? And we always erred on the side of just update the assets and get out of the way. So I am a little bit more on like, don't change game design decisions. And I think that the map size is a game design decision. But man, I just want the like...
It's like, was it though? Because like they're making it on the Game Boy. Like, it was clearly like a technical limitation.
It turned into a game design decision because they designed the levels with the limitation. So it's kind of like, once you expand it, do the levels still work the same way? And in this one, no. But you can't see how much it's been designed until you expand the sides. So it highlights the original.
Like a museum piece.
I do feel like pushing this slightly further, like the end point of this would have been like, and in a second version or second pass, we're going to rework a bunch of puzzles. We're going to like replace the Lost Woods with a new design, that kind of stuff. I agree. Like, would have been an interesting further exploration of this idea. Unfortunately, Nintendo once again nuked them from orbit 2 days after they released this thing. So like, we don't get to see what that would have been. But this was a very smart team in that they waited until they had an incredibly polished, basically bug-free, very nice release before they released it. If you're releasing a Nintendo thing, you gotta know that you're gonna get like angry lawyers from Nintendo the minute you release something interesting based on their IP. And they knew that, and so they released this thing with a solid 1.0. And you can download it and play it right now. I think it looks and plays incredibly. And I would not let, like, I would say, like, this is easily worth playing through. I do kind of agree, Laura. If you've never played through Link's Awakening before, it's at the very least worth playing some of that to get a sense of what are the restrictions that game had before you experiment with this, to know what the difference is. But like, this is a complete game. You can totally play this. It's really, really nice.
It doesn't break any puzzles. It just makes some puzzles way easier and makes some puzzles a little more irritating. But there's nothing broken. It's not like the expansion of the game map does not. It just fundamentally changes the way you solve them. And sometimes you're cheesing some puzzles that you really should have been racking your brain over. And some puzzles are like not puzzles. You're just trying not to get hit by an enemy that would have been off screen in another one. So it's just little changes like that. It's completely doable if you want to try this version. No time did I feel like I was getting a lesser experience. I just felt like it wasn't the original.
And there's like little quality of life stuff too. Like, you can swap items without needing to go into a submenu like you did every time in the classic Link's Awakening. Lots of little stuff like that just, this feels like a modern game in a pixel art style instead of being like emulating a Game Boy. And that's a really interesting change.
Agreed. I also wanted to prioritize this because this weekend it's one of the games playing at Games Done Quick for the summer. That'll be out by the time this airs, but they are not this version, but Link's Awakening DX is getting streamed. So I wanted to play it and kind of refresh so I could watch it completely glitched to high heaven in a couple days and follow along with the plot. I love seeing that whale windfish one more time.
There's one more thing I wanted to mention about this that like I think is incredible, and it's not a useful feature, but it is a technical impressive thing. In this game you can zoom in and out on the map, and some part of that is just like, at what size do you feel this is comfortable for you? You can zoom in so that like you basically only get what would have been the equivalent of like a single screen on the Game Boy on your massive PC screen or on your Steam Deck screen or what have you. But you can also zoom out, and you can zoom out all the way. You can zoom out so far that literally the entire island fits on your screen. And if you look closely, all the pixels are there. If you lean in close, you can see tiny Link and all of the enemies in the game independently moving around at once, which is wild. So that is such a technical, impressive, weird thing that you just don't get. Like this game is worth downloading to play around with just that feature alone, being able to zoom out the map and see the whole thing at once. Super wild.
So my personal background with this game is my first playthrough of something that was titled Link's Awakening was the Switch remake. And it is very interesting how that remake of the original Game Boy game is in conversation with this remake ? I guess we can call it a remake port. I don't know what the best word is of the Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance version of this. And it's interesting in that, like, I kind of wanted to push back a little on what you were saying, Reagan, that this was more, that this HD version was more faithful to the original than the Switch version. And I'm kind of on my back foot here because I didn't play the original Game Boy. Like, the Switch version was my first. But definitely to Laura's point and to what you're both saying, it's very clear the areas where I think the Anonymous folks who put out this port decided to go ahead and sacrifice, some of the fine-tuned details of like how certain puzzles work or how certain experiences were in the game that the Switch version definitely like says, okay, for this, we're going to like, the screen doesn't scroll like it normally does. So in the Switch version, if you're in the overworld, it scrolls around freely. And I believe in the Game Boy version, it's still screen by screen if you're in the overworld, right? Like Legend of Zelda style. But the dungeons are all screen by screen. So it sort of like mixes it. And like one example that I thought like this just flat out doesn't work in the HD port is the gag early on, spoilers for an early trick that the game plays on you. But there's a naughty raccoon that you have to deal with. And he plays a trick on you. And he teleports you into a room that is elsewhere on the map, but looks exactly like the one he teleported you away from. So it looks like the raccoon vanished, and then you go somewhere else, and you're in a completely different place, and it's confusing. But they're just two rooms that are just offset a little bit each other on the map. And if you're playing this, you just go boink, and you're like, okay, well the raccoon moved me over there. I'm over here now. So that entire experience is removed from you. And that's one example of, and I was observing a friend play, and the first dungeon you need to get to, Tail Cave, it's kind of hard to see. It's like an adventure to try to find where it is. And on this game, it's just right there. You can see where it is.
Right.
You can't get to it. There's like a wall in the way. You're like, you're like driving your car, and you're like looking over across the river. I gotta get over there somewhere. The experience is more like that.
It's passing your exit
when you're playing
rather
this game.
than like,
yeah,
where
like,
on earth
I gotta,
would this
where,
be?
Hang on. Yeah. And it's that is a legitimate way to play a video game. You're still lost. It's still like, oh, okay, but like, where's the bridge? Where am I going? But that is different from the original design intent. And just like lots of little things that's like really fun, just how smooth it is. It's like that's very smooth and very weird. Like, again, in the beginning of the game, there's the mysterious murky forest. It's all purple tile and it's misty. The particle effects are cool in this. And because it is so smooth scrolling, you can like hop in between the one pixel, like the purple ground where the forest is and the orange ground where the sunny overworld is, and the music just changes. But it's not like the screen is shifting back and forth. You're just like, I'm here, now I'm here, and then, oh, I'm going to play the forest sound. Oh, you're out of the forest because you're one step over, and I'm going to play the da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's fun. And none of this is a complaint. It's just, as you say, Laura, it is the consequences of choosing to the folks who put this forward chose to prioritize what they did, and they went completely into it, dragged the rest of the game to fit those priorities, and made everything work. And it is amazing that it works at all, much less that it works as well as it does. Mm-hmm. I have also been having fun playing this. It is sweet. It is smooth like pudding. It's like, it is so sweet to play. It is so comfortable. It's harder than I remember. I think the Switch version, they might have nerfed the difficulty a little bit. I'm like, man, that caterpillar guy in the tail cave, like he wallops you again and again. Buzz, outsiders. But it is it's good. It is a good game to play, and I am on board with, like, yes, you miss enough details that were from the original Nintendo designers that I don't think this is your best starting point. But this is a fun replay engine for Link's Awakening, and I'm going to see if I can get to the end on this one. And just as a side note, if I can mention other video game podcasts that I like, one of my favorite game podcasts of all time is called The Complete Guide to Koholint by Ryan Veeder and Zach. And you can find it. It's basically these two folks. They're both interesting folks. They made 256 episodes where they spend one episode on every tile of the overworld of the original game. And the picker for the show is you click on a tile and now you're listening to that episode. It's great. It is literally timeless. It's from like 2019, 2020 era, I think. You should go listen to it. Anyway, I called them up and I'm like, "What? Have you played this thing?" And their thoughts were, "Yeah, I played around with it a little bit. I was confused what its point was." And Zach had a really good quote that basically he felt that it's one of those cases where it's great that you can scale out and pull the camera back and back, and eventually you see a boom mic. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, like you it's like it's a little too far. And I think that is a good summary of both the strengths and the weaknesses and the priorities of this particular port. So yeah, really fascinating. Love to play it. Otherwise, in agreement with y'all on that.
I think if I was a teacher, I would be forcing my students to play this because I think it is because it's a way of highlighting that boundary. I think there's like play a level. I'd play the one or two levels and just be like, tell me how this plays different, because I think it's a very efficient way to see the strengths and weaknesses of the Game Boy.
You're right. And I think I was probably like a little bit too excited by the zooming in and out and the like technical aspects of this. I do agree, but like, I don't know. I was coming to this as someone who hadn't played the original since I played it on my Game Boy in probably high school, I think. And so for me, I was like, this is amazing. And a lot of this, a lot of this stuff sort of fell away when I was just like very excited by it as a thing. But it is really interesting as a comparison. I also was like, I was a little not interested in the Switch version. So maybe because I really liked the Game Boy version. So I think it's just, it's so interesting. You're probably right. If you haven't played any of these games before, probably the best place to start, in my opinion, I think the best place to start is the original non-color Game Boy version. I think that version is the superior version. I don't think it colorized all that well.
But you need the printer compatibility, Reagan.
You need that pea soup green.
You need that Game Boy printer compatibility in the DX, so you're not really living.
For the photo booth, right?
I've never played Link's Awakening, but unfortunately now I'm going to be spending the rest of my life playing fan games of FTL, Slay the Spire, and Celeste. So, thank you all.
Bye,
oh no!
It's been really lovely.
We thought we'd finally cured you of those games, but now we've reinfected you.
You brought me. I told you there's a reason why I don't get into fan stuff, but you got me. I'm in now.
Can I just say, to transition in exactly the wrong direction, what a fantastic title Strawberry Jam is, given the theme of the original game. Like, I don't know if we made clear, if you're not, like, I've played Celeste a little bit, so I got the joke. But what a wonderful play on words, because strawberries, of course, are the optional power-ups or bonus pickups that you can get on every level if you take the hard route. And it was a game jam to make all these levels. So it's a strawberry jam, which is a tasty treat. Put it on your toast. So good.
Yes. Yeah, it's great. And there's a lot more strawberries to find. And some really clever strawberries I've found so far.
And now I will reverse course and talk about the game
You'll
that
turn the wheel? Whoa. Helpful transition.
To the and where do we find wheels? On the streets. The streets of rage. Here's my angry cat.
Oh.
That was
like, how long have you been spending talking about these dang video games?
Yep, it's
a good looking cat.
Introduce the cat.
This is Macy. She's a troublemaker. Say hi.
Macy.
I love you, Macy.
There she goes. She said hi. Okay. You might be seeing more of her. Streets of Rage. Okay, so my background with this, unlike Link's Awakening, I have a deep background with Streets of Rage, at least 1 and 2. I played quite a bit of the Streets of Rage 1 and 2 on the Sega Genesis, also known as the Mega Drive, I believe, in countries outside the United States. Outside the Americas, I'm not sure. So I was intimately familiar with the basis of this wonderful sprawl of a remake. It's just called Streets of Rage Remake, SOR:R. And as far as I can tell, it is basically it's a mashup of the first 1, 2, 3 games. It was where's my fact sheet on that? So yeah, it's by a anonymous Spanish developer named who goes by Bomber Link. I played version 5.2, which is the newest version, and by newest, it's from 2020. And I found it. If you search for it, it is an amazing testament to something that this still works. But there is a single forum post, which if you search for the game, that's what you'll find. There's a forum post somewhere. The post has a non-hyperlinked long gobbledygook URL, which you can copy and paste. Somehow it still works, and that's how you get the latest version of this game. I was able to get it to work pretty easily on the Steam Deck just by when you download it and then you put it into your library as a non-Steam game, back into gaming mode. You then go into the properties in gaming mode and you say, okay, under compatibility, there is a drop-down menu to say, like, no, force this to use a certain compatibility layer, as opposed to you just figure it out, Steam Deck, Steam OS, and you set it to Proton Experimental. Thank you to various people on Reddit for pointing that out. And it works great, asterisk. The controls are odd, to put it lightly. I spent a while... I will say this before complaining about the controls. Out of the box, it does... I had a friend over when I was trying to fire this up, and within minutes, we were playing couch co-op with 2 PS4 controllers connected via Bluetooth with the Steam Deck docked to my TV. It works that well, even if it doesn't work perfectly. So that is a point in its favor. It's a little hinky in that at least one button isn't tied to anything. Like your characters can do a back attack, and I think that button is not mapped to anything, at least on the default settings. I was able to get it working if playing with, I think this is opposite of what you were saying in the Discord, Reagan, but I left the Steam controller support on, and I just remapped stuff in the game. I said, like, yeah, I'm using a gamepad. I carefully remapped every button. There are 2 things you can map buttons to that it doesn't explain what they are, called combo and series. I figured out these are basically shortcuts to doing some of the multiple input mode, so you can ignore those and just have the pure Genesis style experience. And yeah, with all that in, there's one other thing I want to add, which is about save games. This game has I think they're trying to go for like a roguelike vibe, in that, boy, the campaign mode is really long. I'm going to try to finish it. Has anyone finished it? You finished it, Reagan?
No, I've only ever gotten about 2/3 to a little farther through. There's an excellent fan-made route map that if you like Google Streets of Rage Remake route map, I would recommend taking a look at that, because it gives you some perspective on like how many levels are involved and which levels connect to what, because there's multiple routes through the game. And so I'm pretty sure I've made it like, actually probably more farther than 2/3, probably like 3/4 of the way through the game, but I've never beaten it. And I've been playing this game on and off for many years. So
The remake particularly?
the remake particularly, yeah, because so one of the reasons I came to this game was that I've over the years had a lot of various different like little retro handhelds, and this is one of the games that's available as there's a project on those called Portmaster. This is, again, we're getting into technical weeds, so I'll try to make this simple, but the Portmaster project is like a porting project to bring PC games to Linux-based retro handhelds, not specifically the Steam Deck, but even little dinky things like a Miu Mini or the like, you know, Anbernic consoles, things like that. And this is a game that runs really, really well on those. You install the port via Portmaster and then drag and drop in the forum download zip file, and then you've got Streets of Rage Remake running on your tiny little underpowered Linux handheld. And because it's one of the games that, like, I love Streets of Rage, and it runs really well on some of these devices where I was like looking for something to play on them, I have come back to this game many times over the years, partly just because of that. This is actually the first time I've played it on a big screen. Installing it on my Steam Deck was like, oh, it's really nice on this like 7-inch screen. What if I played it on a TV? And I was like, holy shit, what have I been doing with my time? Like, this is way better.
It's so gorgeous, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we should say something about what the game is real quick. It's a side-scrolling beat 'em up. It takes a lot of cues from Final Fight, and I know we're talking about back in the 90s here, but it is just a really solid beat 'em up series, and it is worth noting that the Genesis version does not have roots. And it's also fairly short to play from beginning to end. I think that's fair to say for all three. Again, I haven't played the third one. It was certainly the case with
We
with
did
one
an
and two.
episode on Streets of Rage 2
Yeah.
on this podcast many years ago, and
That you did.
It's,
Yeah, right. That
I
was during
think-
the pandemic, right?
I think it probably was.
Oh,
but yeah,
yeah.
it's a pretty short game. I think if you're good at it, which I'm only occasionally can claim to be good at Streets of Rage, you can play through the whole thing of Streets of Rage 2 in about 3 hours or maybe even 2. But yeah, so short games, especially if you're not constantly dying and starting over. This is like Streets of Rage Remake is like, what if we took all of the interesting levels from Streets of Rage 1 and 2 plus most of the good stuff from 3, which is a bit of a mixed bag, but like a lot of good bits from 3, and just remix them into one continuous experience. You're never going to play through like literally all of those levels in a row, but instead it's got like, okay, you can choose at the start. Do I start in a level from Streets of Rage 1, a Streets of Rage 2 level, a Streets of Rage 3 level, or I think there's something original as well. There's some original content in this that's like not from any of those games.
It doesn't tell you like if it's from 1 or 2 or
Right.
3, and sometimes it's like choose a level, and it's like here are 2 like colored blobs that you can't see very well. And like I think that's the boat from 1. I'm
You
not
want
sure.
the picture of
And
a cop car or the picture of someone
Yeah.
doing a flying
and
kick?
it throws
Easy
speaking of
choice.
Cop car like it duh, but it like it has like mechanics from 1, like the cop car. It has enemies from all the games that are just sort of sprinkled in. I love that it starts out like in Streets of Rage 2 land and enemies from 2, but then like enemies from Streets of Rage 1 appear, even though they're the same like characters from 2, but they are drawn to look like 1, but just upscaled. That is a level of obsessive care that I respect very much. But yeah, super hairy branching paths, new arrangements of the original. Like they keep the compositions of the original games, but there's like new arrangements of them. There's new animations and there's cutscenes and things I have not glimpsed yet because you need to finish the game first. Like there's a shop. There's an AI buddy you can unlock. I don't know if I'm ever going to see it, but it's all there in the menus, and it is a super impressive project, and I am not done punching my way through it yet.
I think in some ways, like, you know, we talked about the Link's Awakening remake as like, this is a weird alternate version of a thing. It certainly doesn't replace the original, but it has interesting ideas. It's an interesting thing. And I certainly wouldn't say this replaces Streets of Rage 1 or 2 in any way, but it is such an expansion on the concepts of Streets of Rage. It's closer to that. If you are a diehard Streets of Rage person, I think this game, it's so good that you could play this and have a satisfying experience that might be even like I play through Streets of Rage 2 like once a year, but I might just play through this sometimes.
Here's the thing. It kind of wants to be a roguelike. So it actually does have a save game feature, which works like this. Quit the game. Go into your Steam home, go into the name of the game, say close, and it's like, are you sure? You might lose progress. Say yes. Close out the game. When you boot it up, it starts right at the whatever point that you are on because it autosaves continuously. If you say, if you bring up the pause, if you bring up the pause menu and you say quit, you're done. Everything is erased. So there's absolutely nothing that tells you that you can do this. I found this because I'm like, this game is way too long. There has to be some kind of save. And people on the internet ask it. And the answer is either like, yeah, hit F12, that makes a save state, or no, just close the game. It autosaves. But if you actually quit, it doesn't autosave and your game is permanently over.
No idea.
I know. You're welcome.
God damn it. I wasted so much time. I mean, this is the kind of game where you expect to replay it. It's not a waste of time. But like, what? Thank you for informing me.
So there's your roguelike element.
Oh my God.
That's funny.
Well, the other thing I would mention about this is like, this came out before Streets of Rage 4. Streets of Rage 4 is a phenomenal game and a great extension of the Streets of Rage series and a love letter to the earlier games, but also moves the series forward in interesting ways. This is not that. It's as interesting as Streets of Rage 4 in many ways. This is a game that is like as fun to play as Streets of Rage 4, in my opinion. Streets of Rage 4 is an amazing game. I love Streets of Rage 4, but like this is just as fun as Streets of Rage 4. But this is like a straight up extension of the first three games, as opposed to a new game in the series in a sense, and that's also awesome. Like I love this game a lot, and I also love Streets of Rage 4. I hope they make a Streets of Rage 5. I really, really do. But I also hope that someone continues to make, like, the last version of this that came out was in 2020. They added some new stuff. I hope they do that again. I want more of this too. I would love to have more Streets of Rage Remake. It's so good. And it's not like I've experienced almost any amount of it. Like at this point, like this game is so large, like I'll never see the end of it now, but like it's so good.
We probably need to get close to wrapping this, right?
Yeah.
We're at
an hour and a half. We certainly are. Why don't we do just a lightning round of we're already in an hour and a half. Let's do a lightning round of other interesting stuff. I played several other games for this to prepare for this show, and I'll just very quickly round them up. These are part of this was that I knew you guys were playing Link's Awakening DX. I left that one to you guys. I'd already played it a while back, but I was still getting the Zelda itch, and the world of Zelda fan games is enormous. And so I will quickly mention 3 that I downloaded on my Steam Deck and thought were awesome, but didn't play enough to do like full on in-depth reviews or whatever these were. There is a port of Link to the Past for the Sega Genesis. Sorry, excuse me, for the Sega Genesis. What am I talking about? For the SNES. There's a PC port of that, which I think is made in Game Maker, but I might be wrong about that. But in any case, a straight up PC port. And you might think like, this game, like Link to the Past, plays perfectly fine in an emulator. I can play that on my PC. Why would I bother with a PC port, especially one that is as slavishly identical to the original as this game, Link to the Past PC, aka Zelda 3. If you're looking for this, if you search for Zelda 3 with no space between Zelda and 3, it is on itch.io. You can download it. You feed it a ROM so that it has the sprites, and then it plays, and it's almost just like playing it in an emulator. But there's a config file, and you can go into that config file and change almost anything you want about the game. You can put it in widescreen. You can map things like changing items to buttons, lots of things that you'd think of as like quality of life upgrades. And you might be saying Link to the Past is fine. It's a classic design. It still feels modern today. You're not wrong. But like playing Link to the Past in widescreen with a modern soundtrack, you can replace the soundtrack with an alternative version with like fully orchestrated audio if you want. You can remap buttons. You can change small things. Like for example, it always bugged me in Link to the Past that you can't break pots with your sword. You have to pick them up and throw them. You should be able to hit a pot with a sword and break it, right? That's a config file option. You can just change that. Like stuff like that. It's incredible. I also played a bit of Dungeons of Infinity, which is a Link to the Past roguelike. This is a game with all the Link to the Past mechanics and graphics, but it is a PC roguelike, a 12-floor, you go into Hyrule Castle and go through 12 floors of Hyrule Castle to defeat Ganon, and it's randomized levels, and it has tons of different builds and items and synergies and all the stuff that you expect in a roguelike. Many roguelikes imitate Zelda and its style. This one is Zelda and its style, and it's really neat. This was a solo dev project by a single guy who worked on it for 4 years, released it for free on his website. You can download it. It's phenomenal. Very easy to get running
that
as
one
well.
with me. That is on the list. I'll get to that one eventually.
I think it's really good. And then the final one that I played the least of, but I was also most intrigued by, Zelda 2 is a game that I've never been able to put serious time into because it is very, very hard for the NES, the original Zelda 2. And so I had high hopes with this one, and I still think I might play around with it some more. Someone took the time to rebuild Zelda 2 just incredibly accurately in the Game Maker engine, and you can download it from itch.io. And I think in order to avoid the lawyers, it is known as ZIIAOL, which stands for Zelda 2 Another something Adventure of Link, I think is what it stands for. But like, if you find the itch.io page, it is as like the words Zelda or Link appear nowhere on the page. It is like really duck and cover mode on that website, but it is available. You can download the thing. That one I had a little more trouble getting running on the Steam Deck. It required some tinkering, but if you Google it, you'll find some solutions. And booting that up, that's another one where it's just like, here's an old game, but running on a new system. Don't emulate it. Instead, you get this nice port. Looks great. And that also brings up that there's a ton of projects to take old games, especially the Zelda series where it started, but all the other games as well, decompile the source code through computer science methods that don't make sense to me, extracting source code from a compiled ROM, then taking that source code, altering it to run on modern systems and recompiling it so that you get what's essentially a perfect PC port. The like headliner of this is the Link. The Ocarina of Time recompilation, which is called Ship of Harkinian. If you have ever been like, I would like to play, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, but I would rather it have high-res upscaled graphics and maybe be able to map it a little better to my Xbox controller or something like that, that is the project for you. You can play a 100% faithful down to the source code version of that game, but with many modern conveniences. And they've done that work now. That's for many N64 games. Both of the Zeldas. Just recently, a Mario Kart decompilation came out where you can play the original N64 Mario Kart, but recompiled for PC. Those games run great, and those are another one that's right there on the Discover Store. Go to the Discover Store, search for Ship of Harkinian. You have to figure out how to spell that, and then feed it a ROM, and it will do the rest for you. And then I was also just briefly going to mention, I mentioned at the very top of the show, one of my favorite fan games I've ever played is AM2R, another Metroid 2 remake. Really excellent game. That's easy to get running on the Steam Deck. There's also, when I was researching for this episode, I found another one that I'd never heard of called Metroid Planets, which was very interesting, which is a remake of the original Metroid, where somebody built essentially a special, I think a custom engine for running the original Metroid. It gets all that sort of like PC port stuff, nice quality of life improvements, but their intent was that this become essentially a Metroid builder, like a Mario Maker, but for Metroid. So it's you can play the original Metroid in it. They've also created their own entirely new planet, which is essentially another new Metroid game that also ships with the thing if you download it. And all of the tools are available there for other people to make their own classic NES style Metroids with these tools without needing to like program it from scratch. You could do like Lua scripting and it's just modern game dev stuff to create your own NES style Metroid. That's the kind of stuff that I really want to see more of that. So I'm into this stuff. I didn't get enough time to play all of those, but I love them. So have at it. If you have a specific fan game that you love, whether it's a source port or a remake, or a totally ground up rebuild brand new game featuring stolen IP that you hope no one discovers and sues out of existence, let us know. We want to know about that stuff. Don't worry, we'll keep it on the down low.
We're not the FBI. Reagan might be CIA. I'm not sure yet, but we're definitely not the FBI.
Definitely not.
So, looking at that show clock, we've been talking for a while. Anybody have any last stuff to bring up about this exciting world of fan games before we roll on out of here?
Watch the YouTube video for installations. That's my number one
Yeah.
hint.
Yeah.
It's
I was looking for just non-Steam games I had, and I have installed from the Discover thing. There is a Diablo 1 port called Devolution X, which I can't get running on my Steam Deck right now. But then there's Super Tux 2, which is a Super Mario World clone, except with Linux's mascot, and it's all wintry. But I think it's Super Mario World. It's just blue. It's much bluer. There you go.
There you go. That's a fan game. Fans of
Yes, it is.
open source software. Listeners, if you have any suggestions, let us know. We would love to continue the conversation. The best place to do that is on our Discord. So this show is supported by our listeners on Patreon. Thank you so much to our patrons. We really appreciate you. You help us, buy Steam Decks for Laura, for example, when that happens.
You bought a Steam Deck and then you gave me the old one, so I don't think that counts as buying Laura's Steam Deck. But sure,
by the transitive property,
Sure.
the show bought you the show bought my old Steam Deck, which I cleaned up and handed over
the
to
show
you.
bought your old Steam Deck, which I appreciate
Yes,
very much.
thank you, listeners, for providing that. And it also, pays for all the hosting and all of the other stuff that goes into a podcast. A microphone breaks about once a year, and we have to replace these things. This stuff happens. So we really appreciate that support. Yes, hey, Laura is picking up the piece of her microphone that broke just before we got on this call. We made it work today anyway.
Okay.
But seems okay to me, so we'll hope for the best. So stuff breaks, we have to fix it. 10 years. Thank you, patrons. If you want to become one of those patrons, you can find all the links and buttons for everything related to the short game at shortgame.fm, which is our website that has links to our Patreon, links to our show on all the different podcast platforms, including YouTube. We are on YouTube now, and have been for a little while, but we have faces, and we also have video of games that we are playing and so on. So if you prefer that platform, check it out there. Let's see. Also, all of our patrons get access to our Discord community, which is where we talk about the games that we're playing. We plan episodes for the show there. We interface with our community. But listen, it's also the best place in the world to talk about the kinds of games that we talk about on this show. If you like short games, join us on the Patreon Discord, and you will have people to talk about those short games. Not just us, but the whole community. We'd love to have you. Let's see. And that's it. I am Reagan Kelly. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.
Laura Nash.
Nate Heininger.
And I am short game patron and Discord chatter Jason McIntosh. You can find me online as JMac or Halstrick, and probably just that.
And don't forget to check out Venthuffer on all your podcast platforms of choice. It's a great show. Jason, thank you so much for joining us again on this episode. It's always great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on. Always a pleasure to yell about video games with you all.
Yes.
And once again, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.
Woohoo!